So next up, we're going to have Brian Aznar from Major League Soccer, who's going to be sitting down and talking with Loris Degioanni, the founder and kind of creator, in that sense, of Sysdig, which is one of the, as you've seen mentioned multiple times throughout the various slide decks throughout the day, a monitoring tool that comes really digs deep into the heart of Kubernetes, all the way down to the node system level, and it shouldn't come as any surprise then that this comes from a familiar face, even though you may not have heard of it, because Loris was actually involved with kind of PCAPs and Wireshark from the beginning. So with that level of kind of background into kind of insight and knowledgeable individuals kind of digging into this stuff, if we can get a round of applause for Loris and Brian to come up here and talk about monitoring Kubernetes in the enterprise. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, how's it going? Digested lunch? Looks like we are the cool guys because we're the only ones that get comfortable chairs up here. All right, so we're going to talk about Kubernetes, and we're going to talk about monitoring in this session. My name is Loris Degioanni. I'm the founder and CEO of Sysdig. I've been involved in open source and monitoring and visibility and troubleshooting for many years, my whole career, essentially. In particular, before starting Sysdig, I was one of the people that were involved with a pretty popular network analyzer called Wireshark. So I've done network packets for around a decade, and then I switched to cloud computing and containers and Kubernetes, and I'm having a lot of fun. This session starts with the question, why is container and Kubernetes monitoring a thing? Why is it? Why do we need to approach it in the new way? And I'm here with Brian. Brian is director of engineering at Major League Soccer. So I've had a chance to chat a bit with him before this session. They use Sysdig Cloud, and I'm pretty confident this session will be interesting, entertaining, and pretty useful, because Brian is somebody that not only is technically deep, but has also really done this. So they are using Kubernetes in production. They have migrated their infrastructure there, so he knows what he's talking about. Brian, can you start maybe by telling us a bit about yourself? And are you the technical guy? Are you a stakeholder? Are you both?
So, yeah, my background is an engineer, but really I'm the stakeholder at Major League Soccer. My job is to connect the product team and the engineering team and be the bridge between both. Just quick background on Major League Soccer, obviously we're the premier soccer league in North America, about 24 teams. And the unique engineering and technical setup is that we provide services not only to our fans to consume our content, which are in the form of articles, video, but also we provide the services to our clubs who their websites are serviced by my team. So, stakeholder.
Can you tell us a bit about your stack?
Sure, yeah.
And give us an overview.
So currently we are, and I'm proud to say, we're fully in AWS running multi-region, and we're fully Dockerized and fully running Kubernetes in production for every single application. Now, in terms of the applications themselves, we really have several buckets of products which the application supports. So we've got websites running Drupal PHP. We've got web services which were being run using Node.js. We've got ancillary applications for CTV devices like Apple TV, also Node.js. And then we've got a series of microservices which provide as a backend for all of the upstream products. And these microservices provide functionality also like video ingestion, stats and real-time stats and data ingestion from our partners, and provide the glue with the rest of our technology partners. So all of that, PHP, Drupal, Node, and Go, fully Dockerized and running in Kubernetes.
And this is running on physical hardware, on
yeah.
virtualized
So,
environments?
Yeah, so I mentioned before, fully running in AWS and multi-region in the East and the West.
Okay.
Yeah. But it wasn't such when I got there, so we can talk about that too.
In terms of the size of the infrastructure, sure. How many machines are we talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, our traffic pattern is quite bursty, so a lot of our traffic comes during games. But that being said, I believe initially it was somewhere around like 80 some EC2 instances running, totally across both regions. I think after Kubernetes came into play, we shaved down maybe 30 or so. But in terms of what we're running in production, we've got 15. Our cluster size is 15, so 10 in our master region and 5 in our ancillary backup region. So
okay, you said something interesting, which is after switching to Kubernetes, you shaved a bit of instances.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Is this because of Kubernetes or just because of an architectural choice?
Well, yes, actually yes to both, right? So when one of the things, the recurrent themes obviously throughout the day is going to be server utilization, right? And so the minute that you're running Kubernetes 1 and 2, or really 1, the minute that you've Dockerized your applications, and 2, you're running in Kubernetes, you're able to switch your infrastructure strategy to really get as much server utilization as possible, right, to your comfort level. And because of this, we were able to really get out a lot of just, old apps that were just running on, a smaller instance here and there. Also, we weren't fully Dockerized initially, so the act of getting everything Dockerized resulted in, refactoring and, making applications ready for the cloud and ready to be Dockerized. So that act of itself also helped re-architect some of the other applications.
Okay, that's very interesting. Maybe I want to touch it in a slightly deeper way later, but maybe to start with, can you tell us a bit about Kubernetes, why you decided to adopt Kubernetes, and maybe tell us a bit about your journey?
Sure. So the context is this. So when I came to MLS, we had a portion of our applications already running in AWS, already Dockerized. And there was the remaining applications were basically either standalone, running on app to EC2 instance, or we had really for our Drupal PHP application that was built and deployed via a pre-baked AMI, right? Now the bottom line was that we had different deployment and triaging steps depending on the application, and I'm sure this is a familiar concept for a lot of you. Now, one thing that made this a higher priority for myself, being creating a new team, was that our team was going to be light. It was going to be agile. So, and if there was multiple ways to triage different applications, that created more work for the new guys that were going to come. Also, it created a larger burden on our PagerDuty and tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 support organization, or the team that serviced support. So part of the decision to go to Kubernetes was to create a uniformity in how we were deploying the applications, how we were triaging the applications, how we were, if we got paged at 3 in the morning, we didn't have to be like, oh, this is a Drupal app, okay, run these set of, use this runbook step. Is it a Node app? Use this runbook step. The goal was to simplify the support, the maintenance of our stack, and also just to make it doable for a small engineering team, really. So we looked at several cluster management technologies, and it was pretty clear that Kubernetes kind of stood out in terms of being the most fully featured. And you know, we started this evaluation process probably at the end of 2015. So it's such a new space that the search even back then was even fewer than it is now. But we still think that, you know, if we had to make the choice again, it would still be Kubernetes. So just really the most full featured. And in terms of really why cluster management in general, you know, as people are Dockerizing their applications from a small portion of their stack to a larger percentage, cluster management is your next problem, right? Your first problem is going to be Dockerizing, getting your app cloud native, and then the third problem is going to be, okay, now we've got all of these things Dockerized. How do we keep track of everything? How do we make sure that we're utilizing the infrastructure in the most efficient way possible, right? Because you could also just dumb it down and throw like a container to EC2 instance as well, but that wasn't, you know, the approach we wanted to take. So Kubernetes really solved kind of all of our you know, requirements and our problems that we started with.
Yeah, it's almost like the Dockerization of your software is step number one. But what really changes the workflow is the orchestration layer that you can put on that, and the containers are the perfect building block for that, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So like I said, we're running about 15 beefy EC2 instances in AWS. Across that, we've probably got like around 130 containers that will run in any configuration that Kubernetes sees fit, depending on the traffic.
You were mentioning end of 2015. So how long did this journey go from, let's say, technical evaluation to actually being able to run your stack on top of this?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So the evaluation started, so when I had come, the team was pretty light. And part of my first job was to build a team. And part of my first priority was to hire a DevOps lead, right? And so after I started the evaluation of the cluster management solutions, the next step was to bring on our lead, this guy John Dodson, who's sitting back there, and he was really going to take the baton from there and really vet it, make sure that it, you know, performed as advertised, and then POC'd it, and then got into production. So really, we didn't start the process of actually evaluating Kubernetes probably until January-ish, February. You know, we kicked the tires, played with, you know, Kate's AWS, things like that. I would say that we probably had like a working POC probably by February, March-ish, and we were running production April, May-ish. Now, the real, I would say a lot of the work, because as I mentioned before, some of our stack was Dockerized, some of it wasn't. So with this first rollout, we were actually taking the part of the stack that was not yet Dockerized. So a lot of the work was also spent in just you know, getting our PHP Drupal platform.
Yeah, you even have the monolithic application
true,
that you had to port to containers, right?
Yeah, so that's an interesting aspect as well, right? When we had, obviously when you start doing net new development and creating net new products, they're going to be done in the most efficient and well-architected way. So for that reason, our Node.js applications were written with a microservice approach. They were, again, running in Docker already on CoreOS as well, but with Fleet. That's something to note when we started out. So that we felt was kind of good to go, right? It was really our Drupal application, our monolith, that needed to go first. And there was a bit of thought there as well, right? Because this wasn't a microservice application. It was a monolith, but the benefit of getting everything uniform, getting everything managed in one set of EC2 instances, every single application running in concert was kind of you know, outweighed the couple hits you would get by you know, containerizing a monolith platform like Drupal or a WordPress or a, you know, like that. So anyways, to answer your question, yeah, about probably four months to get it, our undockerized application running in AWS, and after that we did some tuning there, the applications that were already running in Docker Fleet, that was barely anything. So that just kind of picked it up and dropped it, and that's the beauty of Docker. Once you're containerized, that's what you can do.
Yeah.
You know.
So now everything is in containers and on Kubernetes. So everything is smooth, no problem whatsoever, right?
Honestly, for the most part, kind of yeah, right? I mean, our problems are not major problems. They're just kind of like annoyances that we would like to work on, with the community. But I mean, in terms of what we've gotten out of this, it really does perform as advertised. The auto healing of the system is amazing. When someone is running on PagerDuty support, if a problem does get through, it is truly an application problem that it's not just a restart thing that anybody could have done.
So essentially, you elevate the level of tickets that you as a person have to actually take care of, because the lower level ones that were used that are more related to hardware and system, those more rarely hit you.
Rarely hit us. So let's say when you were a year ago, there was a 50 or 75% chance that you had to just restart a container or restart a server, and now Kubernetes literally does that for you. It really is self-healing. So that was a huge boon. Now, just going to full Dockerization for all of your applications gives you huge amounts of gain as well. Running a small team, really anybody, they could be a node developer, and they know how to, triage or restart a Drupal application and vice versa. And this was a major point of contention before, when you had one set of people who only knew how to service one set of applications and another set for the rest. So, being fully, creating a consistent environment for deployment and runtime was huge for us. So it was pretty great, and it still is great. Now, in terms of some of the issues that we're really probably still dealing with, I would say that the Kubernetes specific ones aren't as large as just we've got a monolith wrapped in a Docker container running in AWS, right? These are really more of our higher level issues, and that's just performance of an application and how cloud ready is it. Now our entire stack is fully cloud native, but it's about squeezing out that extra level of performance, and that's where I would say some of our remaining work is to be done. But in terms of Kubernetes, I would say that the next task on our list is to figure out what's to be done about auto-scaling, right? So the one thing I can say about being aware of Kubernetes is, depending on your cloud provider, your elasticity strategy may or may not be affected. So a lot of people might be running auto-scaled AMI instances in Amazon, and that's something that will change. But I'll say this, we were actually running auto-scaled AMIs for our Drupal application prior to getting there. It's something we lost. However, we are running on our minimum set of EC2 instances with everything, the whole kitchen sink. So we're basically running on our min level auto-scale group with everything. So the auto-scaling issue wasn't as much of a concern in terms of were we ready to handle the traffic. It was more about during downtimes, can we get this thing down to a smaller footprint because the load isn't there, and so that's probably the next challenge, and something that I bring out to the community to figure out what's the correct approach, because obviously with AWS, you can handle these kinds of things with CloudFormation and Lambda and things like that, but we'd like to see what the community says about this as far as AWS is concerned. But if you're on GCE, then you're lucky.
And it's a bit like having a scheduler on the scheduler, right?
Yeah.
Especially on AWS, which has challenges, but it also has benefits because, as we were mentioning before, you can pack more density inside every single machine because Amazon has to essentially distribute the load across multiple customers. And when you get an AMI or an instance on Amazon, you never utilize it 100%, right?
Of course,
But it sounds like, at least in your case, Kubernetes brings you much closer to using the instances on AWS to 100%. Is that
Sure,
right?
exactly. So for example, a year ago, we had a fixed cluster that was let's call it the size of 10 that was running our fleet Dockerized applications, and then we had an autoscale group of 2 to 4 for our Drupal application. And so basically, now that everything is Dockerized and running Kubernetes, we might max out at 2 or 4 for our Drupal app, but now we can run it on 10. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's kind of server utilization, in practice, and really it was pretty great.
Talking about server utilization, can you tell us a bit about monitoring and how your monitoring needs changed in this new environment?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can, from the point of view of a stakeholder, I'll say that obviously there's going to be trepidation with running your entire stack, especially your mission critical applications, in a multi-layer virtualization setup, right? And so part of what, for myself and some of my counterparts, part of what alleviated that anxiety was having a monitoring solution that fully gave you visibility into your cluster running in the cloud and being able to look at that cluster at in several dimensions. So how's the West doing? How are the EC2 containers doing? Oh, one's 80%. Okay, let's drill down there. What pods are on there that are running hot? Oh, is it that pod? And we'll sit there and watch it and hopefully, wait for Kubernetes to reschedule it. But it's really to sort of see it in action and to understand that, if you've got an application like Drupal, which might be running, slowing down from the point of view, from like an APM point of view, from like a New Relic point of view, but then to see it in an infrastructure monitoring tool in full context will give you sort of better understanding of what the problem might be, and even if it's a problem at all. So in terms of the criteria we were looking for, it really was what monitoring solution gave first-class support to Kubernetes. And because a lot of them out there do give support to Kubernetes, it's kind of like in the plugin approach. So you download a plugin and here's what it looks like, with the Kubernetes lenses on. But we wanted something a little bit more thorough. And so that's really what Sysdig gave us, the ability to drill down, look at your architecture really based on the labels that you define for your architecture, which was mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Do you, maybe first of all, why do you need something that is Kubernetes native? Why the plugin approach was not satisfactory for you?
Well, you really need something that ties your EC2 instance to your container, and so you can seamlessly go between the two. 1, 2, if you're running microservices and if you're running lots and lots of containers, you also want to understand how your containers are running based on namespace, right? So you might just want to know how your Drupal containers are running in Amazon, or maybe just your video ingestion, or just your data, metrics ingestion. And when you understand, when your monitoring tool can surface that information, it gives you the insight into to fine-tuning and planning your environment, right? So things like, defining what your actual affinity is down to the real empirical sort of observations. Is you need a tool to sort of show you how your pods are performing in real time. Real time, or last 20 minutes, or last 2 weeks, or last however long. So that was kind of what how we really our infrastructure monitoring needs kind of changed.
And you were mentioning being able to see your infrastructure both from the physical point of view, so like EC2 instances, what the machine is doing, how many pods it's running, is the CPU high, and from the logical point of view. So I don't know how many pods I currently have on my service, and what's the average response time, that kind of stuff. Do you find these two use cases to be mutually exclusive, or do you tend to use them together in like your monitoring, alerting, investigation, and so on? And you have different people leveraging these two different views, or is it more like they need to work together?
No, it has to be absolutely like unified. And like I said, this is kind of a consequence of having a smaller team. But really, I think that the one thing that I think this new movement, let's call it this new cloud movement, is going to get us is we're going to get more understanding from the application to the DevOps point of view, and from the DevOps point of view, towards the application. And so everyone kind of has to be in the same tools, in my opinion, right? And you need to be able to switch between the different views of your system.
So
logical to
the
hardware,
famous move and convergence between developers and operation people, are you actually seeing it in your team? And has Kubernetes had an impact on this from the team point of view?
Yeah, I mean, yeah and no. And the yeah in the sense that initially everyone was very curious, because obviously this is like the latest, greatest, awesomest thing, and so people do put in the work to understand it and be aware of how their application is running and how it gets deployed, right? But when it's doing its job like it is, I mean, really everybody's focused on creating, functionality. So the interesting answer is it's kind of a little bit of both. So, everything has been really, really smooth with the adoption of Kubernetes, and because of that, everyone is really focusing on their job at hand, which is making money, making features that make money, as opposed to solved problems.
Which has an interesting consequence, as what you just mentioned, that even like the teams tend to converge maybe on single panes of glass and single tools instead of having different tools. And I'm talking about monitoring, but other things like, security or capacity planning or log collection. Now the team converges essentially on a smaller set of tools.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the industry, I mean, it's kind of showing that as well, right? I mean, the APM guys are becoming more infrastructure guys and vice versa. So I think you'll see that there's a reason why everyone is trying to do that. Yeah.
All right, we have another 3 minutes to go. I wanted to end with a question related to somebody that maybe starts the Kubernetes journey now. Mm-hmm. So could you share some of your wisdom and give people suggestions about how to approach this as somebody that is like you a year ago?
Sure. Well, in terms of wisdom, I will say that John Dodson, our DevOps lead, has the wisdom. And actually, he created a set of blog posts, so I encourage all of you guys to read it on labs.mlsoccer.com. It was really our lessons learned in going to Kubernetes. So yeah, search for him and hit him up with the gory details. But in terms of like lessons learned from the observer, from the stakeholder, from the manager, I'd say that my response is in two buckets. If you're already Dockerized and running in the cloud, and running in the cloud both, congratulations, a lot of your work has been done. So good on you. In that bucket, I would say the work and the things to be aware of is, like I mentioned before, your cloud provider does affect your capabilities. So that's my one just sort of caveat. Be aware of that. But it truly is cloud agnostic. So, we're in AWS and we love it. And so for those that are not yet cloud native or Dockerized, I think that my advice is really going to be the advice that everyone before me has said, possibly after me, which is, I think everybody's North Star is really 12-factor applications, cloud native that are cloud native, and immutable infrastructure, right? That's like what everyone's striving towards. So in order to do that, it's really about getting your applications prepared to be running in the cloud, one, and efficiently in the cloud, with acceptable response times, and two, Dockerizing. So and all of the work there is going to kind of come under those topics. But it's possible to do all three at once. Getting to Kubernetes, Dockerizing, and getting in the cloud. Like I mentioned, we had done that with our Drupal project. So it's definitely possible, and there's some pros and cons to that. But I think just thinking about your strategy is key there, and making sure that you're doing it in a safe, as safe in a way as possible that's not going to get your stakeholders caught by surprise.
All right, perfect. I think this is it. We're out of time, so please, guys, a round of applause for Brian. And thank you very much for listening to us.